This video is going to be short, right? Because most ERG leaders and inclusion leaders are trying to solve the wrong problem, and they're trying to solve engagement. And the problem isn't engagement, and it's keeping rooms empty. So if engagement is your number one worry, this is the video for you. But I'm going to warn you, there's going to probably be some tough love in this video. This is ERG Strategy, the channel that brings you tips, tools and advice to help you maintain engaged, impactful employee networks that really make a difference in the workplace. So new videos every Tuesday, and I go live every Friday on LinkedIn at 8:30 every week. So engagement, this came up again. Right, and it's the question, without a doubt, that I get asked the most, right, about engagement. As in people showing up. Well, there's two angles to it, but people showing up is what people typically mean when they talk about engagement. They're like, we can't get engagement, you know, we're putting stuff on and people aren't coming, da 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 da. I hear it a lot, and I conducted a roundtable recently of inclusion leads and also a few ERG leads as well. And this question came up again, like from some of the inclusion leads. And there were a few inclusion leads that couldn't make the roundtable conversation. The roundtable, just to fill you in, was about what it would be useful for these inclusion leads to hear about in the next survey that we run, right? So the survey is going to be out very soon if it's not out already. And I basically had a roundtable to get feedback from individuals. And it's really interesting that the topic of engagement came up again. And even some of those that couldn't make the roundtable, who had asked to email me their feedback, this question came up again. And it just keeps coming up. So I have to talk about it again. So here's the thing. I see a lot of ERGs talking about engagement and how challenging it is. At the same time, I see, and they are the minority, right? But I see a minority of ERGs that are absolutely smashing it in terms of they are delivering high impact, right? They're not just delivering loads of events. They're delivering high impact initiatives and activities, and their engagement is through the roof. Their engagement is through the roof, and it's not only even just from within the network. It's up and down the organisation. It's really funny because I had a conversation with somebody after the last ERG Leader Summit, and we were talking about the case studies. Apologies if you've heard me say this before, but we were talking about the case studies that we had handpicked the case studies, and I sort of said, you know, we set a really high bar. We set the bar of, you know, these case studies needed to deliver benefit not only to the network members, but also colleagues wider in the organisation and potentially clients, customers and the wider community. We set a really high bar. The reason that we did that is because based on our work and based on what we see, ERGs that do that, as in they deliver initiatives where the impact is indisputable from the CEO all the way through the organisation, their engagement is off the scale. They don't need to even talk about engagement. In fact, what they tend to talk about is growth. And I remember the one ERG in particular, the organisation whose name I won't mention, but if you go back through my LinkedIn Lives in, if you'll find it. And actually the impact there, and the thing is, so here's the thing, it doesn't even have to be that it's like financial, like commercial bottom line, because this particular network that I'm thinking about, the impact was actually, it tied more into their sustainability goals. Sustainability and their kind of like CSR, like social impact goals, but in a big way, like in a really big way. The impact was off the scale, both in terms of within their business division, within their country, region, globally, across into like another country where they like collaborated into an organisation. It was incredible, to the point that the organisation literally was, you know, made like a press release out of it, out of something that the ERG had done, right? So it's not even that it's all just about the bottom line and all about profit. It's about impact. And that particular network, and the reason that I mention it is when that co-chair took that network on, I think there was like 1,000 members. And by the time they had left, which was 2.5 to 3 years later, it had grown almost fourfold. That, my friends, is what good engagement looks like. That engagement did not come from event after event after event after event. Now, I'm not saying they didn't have any events, right? So don't somebody come for me in the comments and be like, oh yeah, but I know who it is and da da da. Right, but that engagement did not come from those events. That engagement came from a belief based on what people were seeing that this ERG was serious about impact, serious about making a change, and confidence in the levers. So confidence in the levers that they could see, confidence that those levers would bring about change in the organization. So in terms of what do I mean by impact then? So it doesn't have to be bottom line. It doesn't have to be financial. Yes, I'm an accountant by background, but I'm not basically saying that all ERGs need to bring about some initiative that impacts the bottom line. If you can, great. Especially in this here economy, right? So if you can bring in an initiative that does something either to the cost base in terms of improvement or productivity, or does something to the top line, the revenue, great. Because actually for a lot of organizations, if you are in, for starters, if you're in a for-profit organization, your CEO, your exec team would love to hear your ERG's ideas for how to improve the bottom line, right? As one of my co-hosts of the ERG Summit said, you will be talking their love language, right? So that's the first thing. If you are in a not-for-profit organisation, so whether it's a charity or it's public sector, if you can come up with an initiative that will reduce the cost base, again, you will be talking the language of the C-suite, right? And it will be indisputable impact. And if you can't do either of those, if you can bring about some impact that will just make a difference in the world, so the social impact, the environment, the sustainability, again, you will at least make an impact with your fellow colleagues and or out in the wider community as well. So you've got to really think about impact. The other thing I want to talk about, though, in terms of engagement, so I'm going to go slightly left here. I started to think about this in two ways, and this was based on the conversation from the round table. So the individual actually that raised the thing about engagement, raised the question about engagement, wasn't only talking about engagement as in people turning up. They were actually talking about people being allowed to get involved in what the network is doing. So, for example, line managers giving their team permission to attend whatever the network, get involved with whatever the network is doing, or to play a role as in like to be on the committee or to be a co-chair, etc. And those are two very different things, right? That's different to, nobody's turning up. So here's my take on this, and I reflected on this afterwards. My view is this, that for the inclusion leads, it is absolutely their role, working with the people team, right? The inclusion and the people team, to be getting that buy-in from the exec team to sort of trickle down to line managers so that there are no blockers, right? And unfortunately, as our last report and survey found, middle management often is a blocker to network. It just is what it is. Middle management is often a blocker to a lot of things, a lot of change, not just anything to do with inclusion, just generally middle management. It can be difficult to sort of permeate that layer for all kinds of reasons, right? But I think for me, the inclusion leads, along with people, should be focusing on how do we get the exec really bought in and very vocal in support of the networks, such that the line managers are then also supportive of their teams, giving up some time to go and get involved in the networks. But here's the thing, if your network is doing high impact things, you won't see any barriers. You won't see the blockers. If anything, you will see time released if these things have a solid business case that people have gotten behind. But that's the first thing. So inclusion leads should be working on line manager permission to allow engagement to increase. And then once line manager permission, once organizational permission is in place, that's when it is down to the networks to make sure that they are prioritizing on the right things that will drive engagement, right? And that's it. That's all I'm saying. I'm so kind of, I don't want to say I'm fed up of talking about engagement, but we really need to reframe engagement. The problem isn't engagement. And people have started saying this back to me now, so I think it's landing. The problem is not engagement. The problem is what your network is doing. That's it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments, whether you agree, whether you disagree. That's it. I'll see you on Friday for the LinkedIn Live. Ciao.